2 says, the story the author tells in lines 6 through 20 is an example of what style of writing. So we want to look at that specific line. So we're going to read that chunk. So it says, I remember how one night when we were living in the Master's Lodge at Wellington College, I had gone to bed, and waking soon afterwards heard a voice somewhere outside. I got out of bed, went to the door, and looked out. Close to my door was an archway which looked into the open gallery that ran round the big front hall, giving access to the bedrooms. At the opposite end of the hall, in the gallery, burned a gaslight. To my horror, I observed close to the gas that seemed to me a colossal shrouded statue, made of black bronze, formless, silent, awful. I crept back to my bed, and there shivered in an ecstasy of fear, till at last I fell asleep. So this is a bit dark. It's saying that it's taking place at night. He's creeping around this college, sees this really creepy statue, goes back to bed frightened. So we want to see something that brings up these elements of fear. So looking at this, A is ornamental prose. So prose we know is not poetry, but if something is ornamental, it's very flowery language. This isn't flowery, this is really dark. So it's not using really, really big descriptors here. So it's not going to be ornamental. So A is out. B is blank verse. So we know verse. You might not know what blank verse is, but we're going to use the context clues, and we know that verse has to do with a poem. This is definitely not a poem, so B is not going to be our answer. C says domestic farce. So you might not know what a domestic farce is, but a farce is a story that kind of pokes fun at something and is not really a literal story. So this is definitely a literal description of something that happened to him. So that's not it. And what you want to remember about B and C is that a lot of times you might see literary terms on the SAT that you don't know, like blank verse or domestic farce. However, if you know one of those two terms, like verse has to do with poem, or farce instead of domestic farce, use what you know, and most likely you'll be able to eliminate it or know that it's the correct choice. D says Gothic narrative. So you might not know what a Gothic narrative is, but you probably know each word individually. A narrative is a story. This is definitely a story. Gothic is a bit dark, and this is a little bit dark and creepy and fearful. So we like what we have here so far. We just want to double check with E. And E says literary criticism. So he's not criticizing anything that he read and bringing up issues with a piece of literature. So it's not going to be E. And the correct choice is D.